Dear officer, as in many of them. I really don't think any type of abductor or opportunist type of abductor took this child. I don't think that. I keep sensing that. And yet for me, the question everybody is just to make a whole bunch of videos questioning everybody. Yes. And yet listen to me when I say this. Pay attention real close. Pay attention. In fact, turn the volume up. Turn it all the way up. So that you can see what I have to say. There's no way that child could have there is no way that child could have left that house. And the reason why I'm saying that, listen to me, this, you got to pay real close attention, because even this is using common sense skills. There's no way the eyewitnesses could have even seen that child. No, I sincerely, yes. And me saying this, I don't even think the eyewitnesses put themselves enough even to be there to see that young child. Listen to me on this, because see, people don't pay attention, and yet to listen all the way through is to connect the dots, which is why I'm here in the first place. I do not think and believe eyewitnesses seen that young 9-year-old child on that Highway 18. They couldn't have. The eyewitnesses could not have I believe that's probably somebody trying to throw police off. Because remember, there's a starting point in this as well as direction, the coming and going. I don't think eyewitnesses seen that young 9-year-old child. And this is why. Because to be able to see in the night is to be able to see all the way through it, right? You need something there with you to see all the way through it, even on the road or rural roads such as a Highway 18. That sort of thing you can't see going through at that time. So why would a child take it upon herself to walk through if she didn't carry a flashlight along the way? Even from the starting point of getting started, I don't think these eyewitnesses or whoever they were, I do not think they seen that child. I think that was, in fact, could have possibly been someone else. And this is why I'm saying this. To be a driver in the car is to know you need lights, because those sort of things guide you through, as in along the way where there's no light there, as in pure darkness, pitch black, right? If the young child did not have a flashlight, as in going there walking through Highway 18, then how did she walk through it if there's no light, right? And this pertains to the eyewitnesses, because if the eyewitnesses could have seen through the dark, even themselves driving through Highway 18, there will be no point and reason for them to even use their lights. It wouldn't. Because if you're able to see through the night, what's the point in using headlights in the first place? There will be no point in positioning, and even the driver, the eyewitnesses, using even that. And so the reason why I say that, as in the eyewitnesses possibly could have not seen that young child that night, is because if the eyewitnesses, knowing that you can't see in pitch black in the way that Highway 18 gets pitch black, yes, I even read up on that. Yes, I did. Had to. If an eyewitness was to turn off even his headlights in that type of darkness, he wouldn't even be able to see himself. Should I repeat? How many times should I repeat what I just said? I might need to repeat that maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe even 10 times over. If an eyewitness is driving out there, if he was driving out there in that night, in that pitch black, a Highway 18, if he could really see in the dark, he wouldn't even need to use his headlights and possibly high beams, possibly at times where it gets a little bit too black. I'm thinking even blackness plays a position even in that, as in the crime. Possibly so, as in a black male, possibly. If a child, I'm just saying what I'm saying, because if a child cannot see at a starting point, there's no way before she get on that Highway 18. If she can't not see as in walking through something, then she's not going to continue walking further. That's common sense. That's thinking logically. That's thinking reasoning. So once again, if an eyewitness is so good at, say, seeing in the dark, he would in fact turn his headlights off and drive through, say, a Highway 18 and drive without them. And yet, to turn your headlights off is to not even be able to see yourself because it's dark out there. And to be in any environment that pitch black, once a light goes out at night, in the middle of the night, or even at 4 a.m. is to know you can't see anything around because it's a highway. Nothing is out there, not even a light at times, and it's purely pitch black. So once again, if a driver was to take it upon him or herself to drive even through that area at that time with no headlights, that individual once again wouldn't even be able to see themselves. People don't pay attention. They don't pay attention enough, should I say. Your average individual, man, woman, whoever, does not pay attention to these sort of things, and yet I do. To be guided through the night air is to possibly be taken somewhere, and yet I think not. I don't think that sort of thing took place, as in it couldn't have happened. I don't think so. No, I don't. So I'm going to leave that sitting there for just a little bit, and I'm going to make a follow-up video to this follow-up. I'm making many videos. I want you to ponder and think about that. What I said. If an individual cannot see in the night enough to use his headlights, then where was he, as in the individual driving there at that time? Because in order to see in the spaces and crevices of even that thing driving into pitch blackness on the Highway 18, is to know you need something to take you there. Even a young child, being 9 years old herself, if she can't see through that sort of tunnel, which it is dark, that's why even trains use tunnels. That's why even trains do use tunnels, but even trains use lights to be able to see through that. Ask the FBI police, they know why a train would use, say, a light to even guide its way through a tunnel. So if we know and we use our logic, skills, logic, reasoning skills, and to know even a train needs to be able to see its way through at night, and it being a tunnel, which is how dark Highway 18 gets, just like a tunnel at night, is to know once again that child didn't go anywhere. There's a starting point as well as an ending point even in all of this. The recognition, I recognize. Yes, I do. Somebody is holding something in which they're not telling, and yet somewhere is possibly around that house, in that area, vicinity, atmosphere, zone. Yes, all that. Land zone, whatever you want to call it, is all around there. It speaks so loudly. And yet to be a bold enough individual is to get on this camera and speak and say. If you see something, you start at a starting point walking into something. You a child and you know you're going to walk onto. See, you got to even walk onto something to start in the beginning, from the beginning in the first place. To take you somewhere, you must start somewhere to go into something. And for a young child to be 9 years old, deathly afraid of dogs as well as a pitch black, is to know she would have planted her feet at the starting point of Highway 18, saw that it was too black where she couldn't see anything. She would have turned around and walked back home, is what I'm trying to say. Yes, it is. There's even getting caught in that, as in returning, going back home, where, say, someone could have possibly woke up in the middle of the night or 4 a.m. catching you coming back in before alarm goes off. That sort of thing happens with even teenagers. If a child was to do that, leave out the house, turn around, come back in, and then somebody catch her coming in. It has happened with so many teenagers that weren't even supposed to be leaving out, and yet they chose to take it upon themselves to leave home. But once again, a young child is not going to walk and plant her feet on anywhere on Highway 18 knowing she can't see enough to get through it. That's a tunnel which awaits. Yes, it is. Even a child is smart enough to even see that. There's nothing to see. I can't even see the road ahead of me. So why would I even walk through that? I can't even see the grass. I see nothing. All I see is the night air, just enough to be able to breathe it, because I can't even see that. So once again, if a man was to turn off his headlights driving while he's driving in Highway 18, once again, he wouldn't be able to see himself. As in, nobody's there. Nobody's home is what I'm trying to say. To pick pieces apart is to put them back together. To solve a problem is to, in fact, work in reverse. That's how you get a problem solved, as in done. Yes, you do. The mystery, unraveling. You work in reverse. And I believe police will even tell you that. To find a bigger piece and scope it out is to say it's just been brought right before your very eyes. Yes, it has. I have a problem-solving nature, dear police, as well as FBI, dear to you too. But to once again be a driver in a vehicle and say drive out on Highway 18, turn your headlights off, or even turn your high beams all the way off, turn everything off, and possibly even the power of the car, it's to know you can and can't be seen right out there in the middle of the night at that time around 4 a.m., whoever the driver was or could have been. That individual wouldn't even be able to see themselves, as in recognize. No, they would not. Because if it's too pitch black to see anything around you, how could you even see enough to say possibly get out the car? I'm saying for a person to have done this thing, you had to have wore something on you in order to see even that. Night vision goggles, possibly infrared imaging devices on you. That individual getting out of the car had to have that sort of thing. So even implanting things, yes, they would have. To even be able to see in any of this night air type of whatever, they would have had to see, even in getting out of the car, driving off of the side of Highway 18. So once again, if they would have possibly turned everything off in their vehicle while they were driving on Highway 18 and let the car coast in neutral or something like that, if they turn everything off in their vehicle, even their lights at that time, it being night air, they wouldn't have been able to even see themselves. No, they would have not. That individual would possibly have not even be able to see their nose and not even their toes, or where they were planting things, and possibly not even their own fingernails or anything else, because remember, it's too dark to see. So how are you seeing? Even in that environment at night, early 4 a.m., going into the morning, going into February 14th, 2000, the anniversary, as well as Valentine's Day, right? Of a mother and father of a young child who has went missing at that time. How are you able to see? I'm asking various drivers. I'm asking everybody. The question still remains. If you turn off your light, if you turn off everything while you're driving on a Highway 18 and say a child was out there, right? A possible abduction taking place. If a driver, just any random driver, was out there just driving and say they turned off their lights and they continue to drive on that highway, how are they even able to see themselves? So, and to say and ask that question is to know nobody could have been there. As in a young child, dear detective, dear FBI, dear someone out there who is watching this, even the eyewitnesses, a young child could have not been there. That's common sense in itself. That's using logic and reasoning skills. No child was there. Could have been a ghost, who knows? Because it's been said that even when people die, as in they're gone, put to rest, sometimes even their ghost, their shadow comes back, as in a return. You hear all type of stories, in fact, that are in fact real truth. And that's not a laughing matter. No, it's not. It's a possibility that the eyewitness could have seen, the eyewitnesses could have seen something and yet not a young child. No, there was nobody there. Trust and believe when I say that there was nobody there. There could have in fact been a shadow of, say, if a young child was murdered by the hands of someone. Her ghost could have possibly been there Yes, those type of stories, the paranormal activity, those sort of things do in fact exist. And yet no individual is not going to be found on that road if they cannot see anything. No, they're not. Ask a driver. Ask a driver, why is he using his headlights to guide him as in see his way through on, say, a highway 18, and possibly use his high beams if he can't see at night. There's a point and a reason for even headlights and high beams to be able to be there to allow you to see what's in front of you. And so for a driver to not even be able to see in the distance, in the far away distance, or even a little bit up close as in seeing something, for a driver to not be able to see, he would have to need something there to be able to see a very thing of which he could have seen, right? But once again, why would he need to use his headlights? He has to be able to see. So if he needs to be able to see, then a child would in fact need to be able to see. A young 9-year-old child, yes, she would. Because she can't walk in something and not be able to know what is there. The child, I'm saying. To not know what is there is to not walk through it, as in make your way through it. You can't. It's too dark to even do that. Because even a young child will be all over the road, and yet she wouldn't even know that it's a road. And not only that, she possibly could feel it up under her feet, right? But even in that, she would get stuck somewhere trying to find, because there's no type of map guiding her through any of that in the atmosphere, I'm saying. So a young child knows to not get onto something, as in a pavement, a road, or anything, to not get on that thing to walk forward through it because it's too dark to see. No young 9-year-old child has done that. No 9-year-old child, believe me when I say that, no 9-year-old child has took herself and placed herself on a highway 18. That type of thing is not a possibility at night, in the night era at that time. No, it's not. Believe me when I say that sort of thing, ask any FBI, police, sheriff department, they will tell you, even themselves have to use headlights to even drive in that atmosphere. Nothing can be seen before you. And not only that, you can't even see your own body. If I was to wear a sweatshirt like this out there at night or something in that form of fashion, I possibly could not even see that, despite, see how light it is? So young Asia, more than likely, and this is yellow. This is yellow when I point out even that. Asia supposedly wore all white during that time, supposedly. And yet a young child at that time, being 9 years old, she wouldn't have even been able to see that, her own clothes, despite it being white. No, she would have not. No, she would have not. As God is my witness, universe, whoever practice religious out there watching this, viewing it, whoever practice whatever and listening, you ain't even got to be religious to understand what I'm trying to say. That young child was not nowhere out there to be found. She wouldn't even have placed herself there. I'm recognizing things, and not just one thing, but various things. Those eyewitnesses could have not seen that child. Because if they can't see themselves, if they turn off all their lights, if a eyewitness could not have not seen themselves driving a highway 18 in the pitch black with no lights, then how could a child even see herself enough to keep walking further, as in walking through? A pitch black like that, a night air environment like that will totally engulf you. Yes, it will, because there's nothing around. You can't even see a tree. You can't even see the dotted lines or whatever is on a rural road, highway road like that, because even that has to be lit up by something. It has to be lit up by something, and usually that is in the form of headlights. Drivers know this sort of thing. We've taken up driver's education, haven't we? Some haven't. And yet to look at something for which it stands is to say it, as in a call out. I'm calling out various things of which I am saying which it doesn't make sense. For if a driver turn off his headlights and can't see himself, even at that time, why would a young child take it upon herself to see, as in starting at highway 18 and walk through? That doesn't make sense. That stands out the most. It doesn't add up, and it doesn't align. It doesn't align with the story. Matter of fact, it's out of line in the realm of direction. To see a darkness is to walk away from it, as in going the other direction. Walking away, driving away, carried away, whatever you want to say, and all of that is to see, in fact, that you're not going to walk into that thing. You're going to go in the opposite direction, as in turn around and go back home. You have no choice, because to not be able to see something, as in going into it, is to know you're possibly not going to make it through. You're not going to make it through. You can run into anything, as in banging up into something in the process. And yet I still don't think even somebody would have killed her, even by accident, in that form of fashion, because remember, once again, drunk driver, any of that, truck driver, whoever, possibly hit and run, even in that, because once again, a young child is not going to set her footing there. She's afraid of the dark. She's a little too timid, isn't she? To see something and recognize and say, oh man, it is too black. Because to look out into something is to say you can't see nothing in the first place. To stand and recognize right there at Highway 18 before you'll get onto it is to be a young child and look out further into it and say, it's dark. I can't see. I can't see anything. And not only that, there is no headlights anywhere to be found enough to make me want to take the chance, enough to trust going into that. Nothing is there. Nothing is there. Nobody in their right mind is going to see nightness, darkness, pure blackness, and continue walking further into that. Unless, say, it was their shadow, as in a ghost after they were killed, murdered, or something like that. Those sort of things do happen. Yes, they do. You can look that up, as in a ghost sighting because someone has died and that sort of thing returns. Yes, it is. It's in fact a shadow and not a human being. Those sort of things, the sighting of a ghost or something, of somebody that was murdered, killed, or whatever, in the worst way imaginable, those type of things, the sightings are ghosts. Yes, they are. They're not living, breathing human beings. So maybe the eyewitnesses saw that. But once again, a child is not going to look out in front of her or even around her and say, you know what, I'm walking up. Because remember, as a young child walks, she looks further in front of her and not down as she walks. She's not going to look down as she's walking. And who's to say if Asia could have been the individual to look down? And yet I myself, when I walk anywhere, even if it was to walk at night, I'm walking at night, I have to have lights around enough to be lit up. And not only that, I'm not walking anywhere by myself. But I'm saying, if a child is to walk, she's going to want to see what is there in front of her so that she can walk into it. It's common sense. And to not be able to see is to be enough to almost elicit fear in a child. As in, that sort of thing is traumatizing to a child, to know that you're deathly afraid of the dark and deathly afraid of the dogs, but the dark more than anything, and look in the direction you are going and see that the night air awaits you, and yet there's nothing else underneath it. Not even a flashlight to be handed to you as you're walking. So more than likely, that sort of thing did not take place. It couldn't have. And even police possibly know this very thing of which I'm speaking on. A young child going missing at that time did not walk into no Highway 18. She would have turned right around and went back home. You can't walk into something you can't see. If you are even getting into that, you can't see your own hands enough to identify it. You can't even see your own nose. You can't see your own shoes. Asia wouldn't even been able to see. They said she wore white shoes. Asia wouldn't have been able to see enough in the dark to even identify that, as in the substance manner of the shoe. Police know that. Tell a police officer, if a police officer, I want a police officer, sheriff's office, FBI, I want them to watch my video. Yes, I do. I need them to watch this video, because a sheriff need to take it upon himself to drive out on Highway 18 that night, park along where Asia went missing, lock the doors, of course, and turn off all the lights. Yes, the sheriff. I need him to do that thing. Go out there, put himself out there where her stuff was found right on the side of Highway 18, and turn off his lights. And he will be able to see and know if somebody could, in fact, drove, say, in the dark at that time, if they would have been able to see themselves, is what I'm trying to say. I need a sheriff to do this, a FBI. I need one of the two to do this as I'm speaking on this video. They possibly could have done anything like that. I'm saying the FBI possibly have already done this sort of thing in which I'm speaking on, but they need to do it again. Somebody need to do it again in the realm of something doesn't add up. So you need to go back and do it again. As in, go be an FBI, get in your car, sit by where the billboard shows Highway 18 or where there is no light, say where the eyewitnesses have seen her. Sit there in your vehicle where there's no lighting. The FBI, yes, turn your headlights, everything off, and even possibly the car, lock the doors, yes, and sit there. And tell us, you being the FBI, can you see your own clothes as you're sitting there? Can you see your own hands? Can you see your own nose as you're looking down? I know I can't sitting under this light. The FBI. Yes. Can you see your own shirt as you're sitting there? I need the FBI. We need the FBI to tell us this, because if even the FBI agent is not able to tell us this situation, as in the realm of them being able to see themselves, even in a patrol car at night at that time, then nobody else could be able to do the same thing and being able to see Asia. Because remember, we're recognizing the recognition. If an FBI agent did what I just said and him not being able to see himself, then the individual who did this possibly could the same thing with them. So they had to have wore something in order for them to see in the dark the driver who did this, as in planning Asia's things. And not only that, if the driver, the FBI driver who I just told them to do this, then more than likely there was no way for eyewitnesses to be able to see young Asia at that time. Because if you can't see anything on you, as in being able to identify the very clothes you are standing in, is to know no one can see you. You can't even see yourself. So if you can't see yourself and even being able to walk into something further, if you can't see yourself going into that sort of thing, why would you keep walking? A young child is not going to keep walking. She's going to stop where she is, turn around and walk and go back home. She has no choice because she has nothing to guide her there into the night air. No, she doesn't. People might disagree with me and allow them to, because even common sense plays out. Logic, reasoning skills, everything plays out. And with all of this, yes, it does. It has no choice. It has no choice. If an FBI agent was to go out there tonight, sit in his car and wait for it to get really, really pitch black, and he's on the side of the road, a Highway 18, and he turns even his headlights out with his car being locked in the dark. He needs to be able to see even in a patrol car, stuff is lit up on the dashboard. Even that possibly needs to be covered. I'm saying the FBI to be able to see. How can you see yourself in the dark? So the FBI, even in their patrol car, has stuff that's lit up. They possibly need to even cover that, even the cell phone, just to see how dark it really is with no lighting involved, to see if a young child could have in fact placed herself there. Place herself there. And not only that, the criminal who did this sort of thing. Putting two and two together is just to see it for what it's. I'm saying this whole thing is telling. The night air is very telling. To seek out clues is to put it together. Yet you don't even need a sewing machine to even do that. You don't. You can't see. That's why even in driving on Highway 18, that's why manufacturers, and that's why somebody came up with headlights from the very beginning, to allow us the gift of be able to see at a time such as that, driving on a road such as like that, a rural Highway 18 road. If we could all see, being human beings, if we could all see in environments like that, there will be no point of us even using headlights to begin with. So we now know that somebody, whoever, and I'm not saying eyewitnesses, I'm speaking outside of that. So we know that, in fact, somebody who did this, more than likely not, they didn't even use their headlights in the process of, say, planting things, because that sort of thing could be called out as well, being seen. It would have been picked up. And so to go completely undiscovered by the naked eye is to not place yourself there, as in putting yourself there but not having your headlights on while you're doing the whole planting process. So you would in fact have to use something such as a night goggles or infrared imaging device to be able to see out in front of you, because those things go undetected at night. Yes, they do. But a young child, no, she's not. To take it there is to go. Yes, it is. To take it all the way there in the night air is to go. A young child is not going to set on anybody's plantation, anything. And that's not a joke. She ain't going to even set on nothing and say, you know what, I can't see in front of me. I think I'll just keep walking until I get to where I got to get. Or I'm going to keep walking until I go meet my kidnapper or abductor. I'm going to keep walking because they made a promise to me. A child, I don't think, is going to even be that determined to do that, because see, something could jump out and get her, and even she knows that at night. That sort of thing puts fear, as in nightmares and night terrors, in a young child being 9 years old. She know later she might actually have nightmares of that sort of thing going into the dark. So that's the very thing which would have stopped her. And then while she stopped, whoever might have been the abductor or whoever was the kidnapper might have noticed, she's taking too long to get to me, as in coming to get in my car. I might need to drive up to where she possibly stopped at, as in going to see where she possibly could have stopped, and then have her get in the car. It's a starting point and an ending point. So I don't think, that's why I said I don't think the abductors, they couldn't have seen that child. Because that darkness is enough to incite fear in anybody, not a young child. You and I, some of us are afraid of that type of dark, where we have to have a light beside us, just enough to see something. Even if it's a wild animal or something running up on us, we have to be able to see something, to have something in our hands to be able to see. And yet cell phones wasn't around at that time, which have night lights on them, so she couldn't have used even that. Young children today can, but she would not have been able to use even that because they weren't around. But once again, this whole lost and found type of thing is messy. It doesn't add up. An abductor would have noticed if he was picking her up. An abductor would have in fact noticed at some time frame the child is not here yet. What is taking too long? And her coming to get in my car to sit down in the passenger seat or in the back seat or even possibly in the trunk, which awaits, right? An abductor would possibly know that sort of thing, because a young child, to be that timid, she's not going to walk further, as in walk her way through a tunnel which awaits her, that pure black pitch black night air. She ain't gonna do that. No, she's not. So somebody would have in fact had to come pick her up. That's what I'm trying to say. To fit some pieces, a line of puzzle pieces is a place them right there where they fit. Somebody would have in fact had to come pick young Asia up, in place of her going walking and trying to see into the night of Highway 18. Somebody, abductor, would have in fact had to pick her up, because she can't see her way through, right? And so she would have stopped, being too timid as she is. She would have stopped right there. The timing would have gone on. The abductor would have noticed such, and then he would have took it upon himself or herself to drive the car, the getaway vehicle, whatever, drove their car to go find her, because she's taking too long in the kidnap. She's taking too long in the room of a kidnap. The time frame and being kidnapped. The young girl's taking too long to come meet me at my car. What is the wait? That's what an abductor, kidnapper would have thought. So he would have had to go drive to go locate her whereabouts, as in where is she, so that she can come get in my car, because Even I, whoever the kidnapper was, because they make false promises. Even I, the kidnapper, abductor, made false promises to this young girl to get in my car, and yet she hasn't even made it all the way through enough to see to come get in the car. So I would have to go pick her up because she's wasting too much of my time and all of us, as in getting there, the getaway car, getting on, driving to where we got to go. The kidnapper would have thought that sort of thing, right? And so if a child takes too long, yes, the kidnapper would have to go pick her up. And not only that, with him picking her up, he would have to see his way through enough to do that, right? And possibly even him turning on his high beams, because remember, he can't see. So if she took too long, the kidnapper would have possibly said, okay, she's taking too long. I got to be able to see. So more than likely, he's going to turn possibly his headlights all the way up, possibly flash them just once or twice or something crazy just to be able to see, I'm thinking. If she took too long and coming to where you are to get in the car, you have to go to where she was coming from. That's why I said there's a starting place, and the starting place will be right there at the end, the beginning of Highway 18. That's where a kidnapper will possibly go back and look for her, because where else is there to look? I'm thinking, where else do you look for a child if you're a kidnapper, abductor, and say she got lost somewhere out there in the night air and she took too long possibly to get in your car? Where else would you go look? You would possibly look at the starting point of where Highway 18 begins. I'm thinking, because remember, the sun has yet to come up. So there's no night there, as in light or anything beaming down. And maybe it is, as in the light resting right before she gets to Highway 18. And yet, let's go backwards. If there's no highway, if there's no light in the beginning of Highway 18, then you got to go back to the starting point of, say, where Asia could have seen a light. That, in fact, could be the ending place if Asia was to walk into the dark. The light, the guidepost. Pay attention. A young child is not going to walk in anybody's dark without any type of light, lamp, guidepost, or any of that thing. So we go back in reverse. If there was no lights in the beginning of Highway 18, then you go back a little bit more, as in go in reverse of where a light actually stands before you get to Highway 18, and you start there, of where the child could have possibly went missing. The eyewitness didn't see. Them eyewitnesses, however many of them police know about, they didn't see that young child on that road. Listen to me when I say that. A young child is not going to walk in the dark being deathly afraid of the dark and dogs. There has to be a light somewhere in that environment, is what I'm trying to say. A guidepost, a light, a lamp, or something in that environment for a child to be able to see. And if there's nothing else beyond that, then that is in fact where she stopped at. If she even walked out of her house that night, I don't think she did. There has to be a light somewhere of where she could have possibly stopped, as in been picked up to supposedly be waiting on an abductor, as in a supposed abduction. There has to be some light in that environment even before you meet and greet Highway 18. Wherever there's a light, as in a stopping point, is where the child more than likely was supposedly taken as in an abduction. Yes, it is. Listen to me when I say this. I know what I'm saying. I got logic and thinking, reasoning skills on down to the maximum support. Let me tell you. There's a starting point and an ending point. If a child cannot see in the dark, she's going to stop, in fact, where that light is. And if there's no more lights beyond that, that's where she's going to stop, as in be seen. Because even a driver, as in a kidnapper, abductor, has to see her by a light, and not in the night unless he uses headlights. But remember, she's afraid of the dark. Even a young, timid individual is going to, in fact, run and stand somewhere under a light. Because even that puts her back in her comfort zone, comfort level. People don't pay attention enough. And yet to watch enough crime TV is to understand discovery, investigation, ID. I said that backwards, didn't I? ID. I do, yes. because I like to solve puzzle pieces. I just stated the name, and yet I in fact work and do, yes I do, projects and stuff for Discovery, yes I do. And so I said the name in reverse because I'm looking at everything in reverse, which is why the thoughts is going mixed up. But ID, as in the TV show owned by Discovery Communications Inc., ID, the link is below. It's Investigation Discovery. That right there is a name pronounced right. Yes, it is. But once again, to be a child of 9 years old, deeply afraid, timid of the dark, is for you to in fact stop where there's a light post at. Because even if a kidnapper promised you all these promises, you might be bold enough to run or even whatever, try to find the kidnapper as you're going, as they told you to come where they are. But a young child too timid is not going to do that. No, she's not. No, she's not. Recognition is just that, as in seeing the very matter of which it stands. She's going to want to run somewhere where there is a light is, or somewhere close nearby where a light is. Yes, she is. Because remember, she's timid, afraid of the dark. And for things to get too dark is to once again, in fact, see where things don't add up, as in a location. So a light has to be somewhere near her if she was to do even that. As in, say, if there's a light right here and he told her to wait somewhere, she's possibly going to stand next to it, but a little bit further away from the light, so that she's not even afraid of her own shadow in the night air. A 9-year-old thinks that way. Yes, she does. She has to, because to know anything might be out there lurking for you at 9 years old is to look all around you and possibly say, oh, I don't like this, and get closer to a light post. Yes, you and I know if I need a lighting support system to stand under a light enough to put light in the camera so that you can see me. That's to understand and say a young child did not walk that Highway 18 in the middle of the night. No, she did not. Because if I don't put enough light in this camera for you to see me, you wouldn't even know that I'm there. You would not even know that I'm there, you the viewer. So it's the same with a man, woman, whoever species that was driving in a vehicle. Them themselves took it upon themselves to wear some night vision goggles or infrared imaging devices enough for them to be able to see, to lurk out the night. Yes, they had to. Because if a camera can't pick up stuff properly without lighting, that's night vision in itself. Yes, it is. Then a young child or a grown man can't even see in that night air without some form of light. That's a recognition. I just called something out. I called someone out, is what I'm trying to say. That sort of thing didn't happen. It couldn't have. It couldn't have. So police need to even go back to the starting point of where does a light start near Highway 18, as in where she would have gotten on to begin her walking process. Where does a light start and end? Wherever the light started is possibly where she started, but wherever it ends is to know she didn't move any further than that. The lighting. She ain't gonna move no further than that light. Because even that's a lamp. And yet to not have a lamp in your hands to be able to display what's in front of you is to move no further than that. It's not. To see something is to recognize. So FBI, hello FBI, I'm speaking to you, even the FBI. No, I do not fear the FBI, and yet so many people do. Possibly I heard, coming from where I grew up at, the hood environment, many people fear the FBI because of the drug game and drug environment and all the other stuff. And yet I myself am not fearful of the FBI. I would in fact work with them team of people as well as for them team of people in the realm of the unpaid and going, undetected, the unsolved mystery. Yes, I would. 2 and 2 heads together is much more better than 1. 2 and 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 heads is much more better than 1. And yet they use a team to the maximum, even in the realm of maximum security, a locking away and drones and all that. And yet I would even help in that, as in them, the FBI. Yes, I support it, any and everything which has purpose, which revolves around life itself, as in the Discover. Which is why I'm with Discovery in the first place, because even they know and understand. the meaning of the message. So that's all to be said. But what did this driver use when they were out there planning their things? Was it night vision goggles? Was it infrared? Someday we'll one day find out what those individuals have in fact used. And yet to not sit regurgitating the same information that the police have put out, as well as the news, as in just saying just that, is to in fact lead to nowhere. You got to sit down and question everything. As in, did an opportunist take this young child? And yet I don't think so. I don't think so. I do not think any of that has happened. Let me say to you right now, that sort of thing more than likely could have not happened. I think somewhere surrounding the home, this situation had possibly could have taken place. That is all to be said right now. So let me ask the eyewitnesses, drivers, or whoever was involved in whatever, trying to see themselves, knowing they couldn't even see themselves without a night light, even their headlights, because that's why it's there in the first place. So let me ask the eyewitnesses, what in fact did you see? What did you see? And not only that, eyewitnesses, maybe the eyewitnesses need to take it upon themselves and drive back in that night air and sit where that billboard was, where Asia was supposedly seen, and lock their doors and turn out all the lights as well as the car, and tell us, what did you see? I'm saying, while you're sitting there, the eyewitnesses, what could you have in fact seen, the eyewitness, while you were there in the night air, having no night vision, seeing what's surrounding you? What could you have seen? The eyewitness, whoever they are, they need to experiment themselves and plant themselves there in the position of placing themselves where Asia was supposedly seen. And they need to turn off their car and turn out all the lights, as in their headlights, which in fact obstructs your vision, and pitch black. Yes, eyewitness, whoever, they need to in fact experiment with what I just said. Go out there, lock the doors. Do not get out of the car at all. Do not get out of the car. Don't do that, because killers await on the outside of the car. They possibly can't. But go out there, park on the side of the road just enough to not get hit by another car, possibly on the grass a little bit or something crazy. Somebody needs to go out there, I would say FBI more than anybody, and sit in that car with the doors locked and wait. Turn off the car, turn off the lights, turn off everything. And sit in that night air and tell us, can you even see your clothes that's on you while you're out there? Can you even see your hands while you're out there? Can you see your nose while you're out there? What else? Can you see your pants, but your shirt is more higher? But even that will be dimmed out in the light, I'm thinking, if you're in your car. I need someone in their car to tell me, can you even see your own dashboard while you're out there? Not FBI, but somebody else. Can you see your own dashboard while you're out there? Because even that presents a distance. Can you see the hood of your car while you're out there? Because even that presents a distance. Radius, distance, whatever you want to say, all of that is in fact at play here. So if a person was to experiment and do what I just stated, of placing themselves in a car on the side of the road where Asia went missing in the plain dark, with no headlights, without the car running and her doors completely locked, and don't get out of it, if they can't able to see anything in the distance surrounding them, then that's to know in fact a child went missing and possibly wasn't even there in the first place. So to the FBI and police, I would in fact start at home. That's what I'm trying to say. Start at home. Start at home and walk beyond that, and see how far you get before, say, you meet a light or as a lamp before it goes out, as in no further, walking no further beyond that point of where that light stands at. Team of police, whoever needs to do that, I'm sure they already did, even that night. Yes, a team of FBI crew and everybody else need to do that sort of thing at night, because something is telling and yet it's not, as is. It's a sign of being off, as I'm trying to say something's not right. Pinpointing something is to connect the dots, as even a standing position, waiting there, standing there on a ride to come pick you up. So where was this last light at, as in the position? Because it's even cause and effect, even in that, as in a resolution. a closing of a story. There's cause and effect even in that, as in a light, a standing lamppost. You're standing there as a child waiting for someone to pick you up. There's a resolution in that, in the realm of a light, and you being seen possibly where that light took place somewhere near Highway 18 before you got on it, before you got on it on foot, being a child at 9 years old. Where's the light at around that surrounding area? So I'm gonna close this video out. That's all to be said. I gotta make a video about direction in relation to Highway 18. Yes, I do. I gotta make another one, as in a part 2. So this one close it out for now. But once again, if you are an individual who is intrigued in the mind enough to find out what took place as in went on, as in driving your car and sitting out there, not the FBI at night, it's to know killers are all around us, even under lights everywhere. I'm under a light right now. I had to see this in order to make this video. But once again, that's why I'm saying, if somebody was to go out there in the car at night, don't get out the car. But to try to find out what could have took place is to know, once again, whoever goes out there and try to see, you can't see yourself, even at night. So even the person who could have in fact did this, that grown man, whoever he is to know he couldn't even see himself at night. Couldn't have seen himself at night. And yet I'm wondering what role that plays in relation to him planting things in the form of fashion of which he did, as in even the resolution, cause and effect in relation to that, the realm of it. To not be able to be seen at night is to know you can't really see a child at night. And in fact, you can't at all see a child, because remember, she can't even see herself. So the driver can't see, which is why he would use his headlights, and yet to commit a crime and go plant is to in fact turn them headlights off, as in a lamp, the criminal. And so tying in with the items that were planted with hers, yes, the items that was planted, not with hers, but of hers, my wording, of her stuff being planted, I'm wondering what's the resolution in that, as in what's the definition in the realm of why was they put there in the first place, planted there in the first place, and what's the reason, as in a definition of them being planted in the way that they were. A measurement, a yardstick is involved in even that, the 50-yard line. And I spoke of as I spoke in the room before when I said a 50-yard line, a yardstick, the measurement 50-yard line could in fact represent a football player in his former years growing up, his childhood years growing up. Because see, to understand and know football games or football lines, the measurement yards and whatever else measurements, is to know possibly even a football player played a position in that. Could have been, right? I'm thinking for a football player, he will understand and know sports enough to know how far to go, as in how far to go out as well as come back. I'm thinking, I don't know for sure, I'm thinking. And yet even that in itself will possibly have been ingrained in his memory bank, because if he played sports for too long and was an avid lover of sports himself, and say he ran a 50-yard line, then that sort of thing you probably wouldn't even remember, even in growing up. Would you? If you played football as a younger person, because it's known for a person to possibly play football as a child is to someday, one day grow up and do that same thing. In your free time, maybe. To love something growing up is to possibly do that sort of thing in your free time, and not only that, possibly put your child in those sort of things. Which is why I had questioned the father from the beginning. Did he ever play sports, run sports, been a part of that sort of thing? Because even his children being, enrolled or put in certain programs, such as a basketball, is to know there was a love of sports there from the beginning, as in the early beginning, by someone within the house. The measurement of the 50 yards is completely off, because they could have even took the bags further, much more further than that, and yet something stands and points in the direction of even that. The mystery or possible murder mystery if there was a child unfound, say never found or something like that. The 50 yards represents a line, possibly a running back. Who runs 50-yard lines? I'm going to have to look that up in the realm of the football. What a running back or anybody of that. See, I don't understand sports too much, but I'm going to have to, or linebacker, running back, linebacker. Who runs 50-yard lines in sports? Because yes, a woodman's could possibly have did this, but if something is too close to home, then more than likely a sportsman with sportsmanship could have possibly did that thing, as in planting her bag 50 yards off of the road, as in off of Highway 18. So I'm in question of who could have played sports in their past and yet still have a love for sports and passion for sports, possibly even today, and yet are not telling. They're not telling. All this doesn't add up. What type of, because see, yes, even in all this stands sportsmanship and connection, even with the 50-yard line, all this ties in with sportsmanship, because even Asia was a basketball player herself, and even her brother, wasn't it? That's recognition as well. Somebody who plays sports could have been a part of this. You never even know. To see, to solve crimes as in a crime mystery is to line things up. Yes, it is. All this revolves around sports. Look at it. It all ties in with that, because even Asia's uniform was found in the bag, wasn't it? So that goes to show it ties in with sports. Who in fact around that home, in that home, somewhere around the surrounding area, loves sports the most? Enough to say put their child into it? That's not saying the parents, I'm just saying, speaking logically. To add up is to align. Who in fact loves sports? Not only that, who could have possibly wanted a child to say put her sports uniform in a bag, her own book bag, and then walk the book bag out, say 50 yards out away from the Highway 18? Who does that sort of thing? Only somebody with the love of sports, as in the game, going down. And yet maybe there's possible forbidden detail in even that, as in the standstill in all this, where everything is coming to a close and yet nobody seems to know anything or even understand anything of aligning pieces together. If you have a young child put a uniform in a bag, that represents sports. If you walk a bag out 50 yards away from of where the highway is, and it sits Highway 18, then that's sports there as well. And yet to not be able to see an identity up close or even from afar in pitch black is to know sports could possibly stand there as well, as in the identity of the individual who did all this, because even the identity of the child was in sports. Young Asia herself, that was her identity in the realm of sportsmanship, playing sports, playing basketball, shooting hoops. That itself is a game. And even planting things is a form of a game, I'm thinking. I could be wrong in that. Because to want to search and find something, as in plant something, to give somebody the opportunity to go find it possibly, that in itself has to be a game. That sort of thing you call like a treasure hunt. That's in fact a treasure hunt. Yes, it is. It has to be. To plant something and hopefully somebody is going to catch on to the clues to find out what it is. That's a treasure hunt. We even as kids, many of us heard of that sort of thing. Put something somewhere, you got to figure out what this is, what it means, and then you got to go find possibly the individual who did it. as in them taking the escape route out. Who knows if there could be guilt, or maybe not, and even that in which it stands in relation to the treasure hunt. Who knows? Because even psychopaths are all around us, as in walking around amongst us. And yet you don't even know they're there, because remember, it's nighttime. Supposedly. It's nighttime. Sportsmanship. Football, basketball. Who around that family loves football and even basketball? Because see, to want to put your child in any form of sports to begin with is to know you got to have some type of form of love for that thing in the very beginning. You being the parent. You will more likely, if you have a love of sports, you will more likely place your child there in it. Because that is possibly a child dream of, say, once you to in fact live through the child, say where your dream didn't in fact take place, the parent. Putting your child in something, say, that you wanted to do in your former years is to in fact outlive that very thing through the child and them playing sports. Football, basketball, golf, fishing, any type of thing such as that. You live it through the child if you couldn't live it before, right? And so anybody could have did this. I don't think eyewitnesses, innocent eyewitnesses, there are in fact guilty eyewitnesses that try to possibly throw you off the path and scene, and to protect their identity, they will possibly call in and play and act like they seen something, or have somebody else call in and play like they seen something, and yet they could have possibly played a part in it as in part of the process. People do all type of stuff. You done watched enough crime shows to know. And yet to get involved in something is to in fact place the pieces there. Seeing things, stepping stones, seeing not even that in the midnight air further into the air, 4 a.m. To not be able to see is to not be able to see. Please recognize and don't close your own eyes. And please don't let me be shunned in even saying what I said. Whoever's mad, my deepest apologies, and yet the information is right there for you to watch it and possibly play it again. If I say something and I say it too fast, or you need to hear it again, press rewind. Like they say, be kind, press rewind. So I'm saying just that. Play it again. That's all to be said for now.